Vous vous apprêtez à regarder une interview de Freddie Wong. Freddie, c'est un OG du YouTube américain qui a disparu pendant 6 ans pour essayer de vendre des films et des séries télé à Hollywood et qui revient maintenant sur YouTube. C'est une de mes plus grandes inspirations sur Internet. L'entretien est en anglais, mais je répète en français à la fin de chaque question pour que tout le monde puisse comprendre et on a aussi mis des sous-titres. Dans cette vidéo, on parle du futur de l'industrie du web et de est-ce que c'est nécessaire d'habiter particulièrement à Los Angeles, mais ça s'applique aussi à Paris pour nous. Bon visionnage.
People really want to know your opinion on the AI thing. Like, what does Freddie think about AI?
I think that it is the craziest force multiplier of our time.
Yeah.
I think that it's, again, in my experience, when people say it's going to change everything and see people say it's going to ruin everything, it's neither one. It's going to be somewhere in between. Because I've heard that with tons of other stuff, right? And it reminds me very much of when YouTube first started coming out. People were saying it's going to revolutionize TV and no one's going to do it. It's like, it kind of did. And it had an influence and it's changed over time. It's still there. Right. It's still on the graph.
Yeah.
I think that the question of AI comes down to it is allowing people to skip past some of the grunt in a number of fields, right? In creative fields, some of the grunt work of, you hear about manga artists using the backgrounds or whatever, something they don't care about. You hear about writers being like, this is grunt work, I can skip past that.
There's also a big difference between like generative AI and like automatic rotoscoping.
Yeah.
Which is like not the same.
Which is, even though they come from kind of similar bases. Yeah. I think though that it is fundamentally a backwards facing tool. It is not one that can, at least so far, I have not seen anything where it's generated. I've not seen anything that is on the generative side that struck me as interesting and new. I've always seen so the thing that I'm looking for is I have not seen yet an AI joke that's funny. I've seen now here's what I've seen. Okay. I've seen people write jokes that are funny and use AI to put them out, right? Or concepts that are like funny concepts and they're using AI to like, there's one that was like, there was like one like a Harambe musical AI that was like, the scenes from Harambe and then they win the Emmy on it. That's like a funny concept. I have not seen a written joke that is funny yet. Because I think that like, there are some things that it can't touch and it hasn't been able to touch, and maybe it will. But also, I think at the end of the day, people care about effort and I think people care about human effort. And when people dismiss AI, a lot of it, when you cut down to it, is because you just threw it out there. You just typed something and you made something. And there's no effort there. And it doesn't feel, it's less interesting to me than someone who has put it. And by the way, you can put a lot of effort prompting and going back and forth and stuff like that. But I think people recognize some degree of the hand of a human being. And I don't think that disappears. I think that even if it has to scale down. So long story short, I don't think it's going to change and upend things. I think it's going to make some tasks in our visual effects world probably easier. It's already, and honestly, a lot of that technology has been in early forms, been in that case forever, right? Like you go all the way back to the crowd sims that they did for Lord of the Rings. It's like, that's machine learning. That is a rudimentary version of kind of what's going on. I'm not worried about it. I just think that, but I also think that the way it will get defined in the visual culture will not be from people like me, will not be from, we were talking about off stream. It's going to be teenager in some weird part of the world who wants to make something and doesn't quite know all the tools and doesn't have everything. And
didn't come up with like Adobe.
Didn't come up with Adobe. And they're just sitting there and they're typing in the things and they're seeing it and they have an idea in their head of what they want to do and they're going to use it to try and get there. And over time, what is interesting is the more control you want, the more it becomes, I need to learn more tools. I need to learn more skills. Yeah. Right now, it feels to me like a slot machine. It feels like you type it in, you do, and you wait, and then you hope that it comes up something interesting. So and to me, creativity is not about pulling a slot. I always, to me, the question of like, is there such an AI artist? To me, I'm like, there's a word in the film industry for it, producer. Mm-hmm. A producer does the same thing. They don't write the script. They find a writer and they prompt a writer to come up with an idea for them. And then they wait and then the writer comes back. And sometimes it's exactly what they want. Sometimes they hate it and they go to another writer. But like that process of somebody who is not necessarily creative, but prompting different people to do things, that's a producer. That's a film producer, right? So
that's a job. Yeah.
It's a job. And so it's like, I think you can see that. I think you see something like that. And what it looks like, how long it is, it's starting. You're starting to see the kind of slop slowly the moment they had audio, right? The moment you started to see like, I have.
Can you believe I'm a prompt?
Oh, here's.
Let me do the French
Oh, yeah,
version,
yeah.
'cause I don't want to
Of
misrepresent you
course,
and like
of course.
forget what you said.
Oh, yeah.
So, on parlait de son avis sur les trucs IA parce que vous aviez posé la question en DM, j'en ai vu un ou deux dans le chat. Julien, j'ai vu ton message, c'est rigolo. En gros, ce qu'il disait, c'est que lui, il a vécu beaucoup de vagues technologiques, donc il a un peu dans le délire de quand les gens pensent que soit ça va être de la merde, soit ça va tout révolutionner, lui il pense que ça va être à peu près au milieu, parce que il a entendu ça de plein d'autres technologies. Et il avait un truc qu'il a dit il y a une seconde, je trouve intéressant, c'est de dire pour lui c'est un outil qui regarde vers l'arrière, c'est-à-dire qu'en gros, forcément il s'entraîne que de trucs qu'il connaît déjà. Et par exemple, il a jamais vu un truc d'art généré par IA où il est en mode ah waouh ça c'est intéressant et original. Et une formulation que je trouvais rigolote, il a jamais lu une blague écrite par IA qui est drôle. Et c'est assez marrant parce que du coup t'as toujours besoin d'un humain, machin et tout. Et après il parlait du fait que le boulot en fait finalement de prompter quelque chose et d'attendre le résultat, c'est un petit peu comme une machine à sous où genre tu vas tirer le levier, tu vas regarder si c'est bien. Et au final ça ressemble un peu au boulot de producteur dans un film traditionnel où un producteur il va avoir un réalisateur ou avoir un projet entre les mains d'une façon ou d'une autre et il va dire bah tiens je vais l'envoyer à tel auteur, à tel machin, et au final il prompte un auteur de lui écrire le truc et après on va renvoyer faire des notes etc machin. Donc au final il le voit comme un truc un peu de producteur. Par contre pour les jeunes générations, les mômes de 18-19 ans d'aujourd'hui, qui n'ont pas grandi avec les outils avec lesquels on a forcément grandi et tout, parce qu'on a à peu près le même âge avec Freddy à quelques années de différence, mais pour qui c'est le premier outil, ça va être un super moyen de plonger dans des trucs créatifs et d'essayer des trucs et d'en voir les limitations et de se dire ah là je contrôle pas vraiment mon image, c'est pas vraiment ce que j'ai, et donc là maintenant je dois me mettre à apprendre les outils que les anciennes générations ont dû apprendre, les outils de montage, etc. machin. C'est un premier outil qui est vachement intéressant pour toute une nouvelle génération qui fait des premiers tests et qui balbutie avec quoi. Sorry.
So I'll give two examples I think are interesting right now.
Ok, deux exemples de trucs qu'il trouve intéressants.
So here's an example of narrative, taking the vertical narrative short thing, starting to go fully generated.
She produces Tilamana with her body. That night.
Okay, all right.
Les trucs narratifs. Okay, it's creative enough that
It's crazy and
someone
it's
had to
interesting.
think about that.
It's a series. But now here's the thing. It doesn't, I think people think about things as like, oh, it's going to replace all this. It's like, it can also sneak in and take away from other things. It doesn't replace it. It just coexists alongside of it. And I think that there's a layer, the layer that it's at is like forgetful kind of slop, low level stuff, memes, like fun. Now here's the other one. I thought this was really, really interesting. And here's an example of one that I think, here's a guy.
That's AI?
How do you think he's doing this?
Hold on. How is that AI? Hold on.
So you know how to do this.
Oh, no, I know. Dude, no, I got it. Okay, so he's filming every single plate and then the transitions.
Stills.
It's photos?
Photos animated and transition around. Now that effect, when I saw this as a VFX guy, right? That's hard. This is not easy VFX, right? It's
If you
a
were
lot
doing
of
this
compositing.
manually?
It's tough. A lot of time to do this. Okay. But so to me, I'm like, that's a cool music video style aesthetic. The idea of coming in, and the way that this guy did was he was taking fit pictures in the elevator and then in between transitioning, having move out of the way, all that stuff. And so that was an example of something where I was like, that's a cool idea. It's an interesting visual gimmick. It's the kind of thing that
You could do it without AI. It's just
you could do it.
annoying.
It's a lot of work. It requires a lot of expertise. But this guy's able to do it just off of his fit pictures. So I'm like, oh, music videos are going to look really crazy. Yeah. But not the ones that feel like AI. The ones that look more like this. The more you're like, that's an interesting visual thing.
But also, to your point, this is the work of something who actually thought it through in his mind. Yeah. It's not like the prompting grok, boop, There's some thought put into this.
And it's like a cool result. So I think that that's the kind of thing. That is where it ends up. That it raises in the same way that ChatGPT can make now everybody sound a baseline level of professional.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you don't even have English as second language, you can type in ChatGPT. It'll get you to a baseline.
It'll have okay English.
Yeah. Okay. It'll be readable. It'll be probably better than you Google translating. Right. ChatGPT gave that for language, visual language. Everything rises up to that level. There's a baseline now. So, but
it's funny you say that because I had a saying on stream. I was like, because at some point some people were panicking, like, oh my god, my job's going away. I don't think it's going away personally. It's going to change, but
here's what the other thing too is like. Visual media is everywhere right now. You have AI slop. You have and more streaming shows than you'll ever have a chance of seeing. I still haven't seen one battle after another. I haven't had time yet. More movies. There's tons of stuff that take up our time. Everyone's audience is going to be small.
Yes.
Everyone will have a
Niche little corner of the internet.
but the niches are going to be, and I've said this, this was my keynote at the second Rooster Teeth Expo was,
Nobody knows what Rooster Teeth is, by the way. I know what you mean.
But like everybody is going to be in their own niche. And the niches don't necessarily crosstalk, right? But the niches can be huge and they can support 8 to 15 people, right?
Yeah.
But that's going to be a niche. And I think the people who are uncomfortable with the idea that, because, before we're coming from an era where, movies, I'm going to be world famous. Like, no, not anymore. I think you're going to be able to make a living, hopefully, but that's it. And I think I'm fine with that.
I think I'm going to do the French version in a second, but I think it links back to 2 points that I find very interesting. One is one that I made like a few months back, which is like taking the perspective of a video editor. These new tools are going to make like a bad video editor into a medium one, a medium one into a good one, and a good one into an agency.
Yeah.
That's kind of
that's what's happening on the programming side, right?
Yeah.
The first people who are touching these tools are programmers.
Yeah.
Right. And when you talk to a programmer about it, their opinion is very different than the artists and stuff, because they say they have used it for longer and they're like, it's helpful. It helps me with this tool, this tool, this tool.
All the small little shit that I have to do.
Here's the difference, right? I think that you do yourself a disservice by not understanding how they work. We lack a good analogy for what these things are. I think people are like, ChatGPT is like an expert. Not quite, right? It's not thinking in that way.
Yeah.
It is mapping your words in semantic space to probabilistic vectors.
Yeah.
That's not the same as knowing what it is and why.
It's autocorrect on steroids.
And why that's important, but it's also not quite. We don't have a good way to describe it. Why that's important is because you should be able to understand what is a question I can ask ChatGPT that it will be bad at answering.
Which there's plenty of. I mean,
there's tons, right?
Yeah.
And so, for example, for a small example, you might ask, well, give me a random number. Well, ChatGPT isn't generating a random number. It is sampling across the language base of when these words put together, and these are the numbers that come back for that. So it's not truly random. It's going to be influenced by whatever the data set and weights and training is, right? So, but you can get ChatGPT to give you a random number. You have to say, write me a Python script that uses so-and-so libraries that can generate as pseudo-random a number as possible. And the script that it generates
is random
in a code that you run in code can work. So I think, to me, the way that it makes sense is that there's going to be a programmatic understanding of how we can still use computers and the way the computers work. And then there's also going to be like a semantic, the way you discuss it. These two worlds have to merge. And I think you have to be good at both, because if you understand what the limitations are, you also can use the other tool sets computers give you to get around those limitations and still get to an end result. But you still need an end result in your head that you care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll do the French one first.
Good luck.
Before the second point.
Good luck.
Good luck. Non, en fait, on parlait du fait, tu sais, moi je disais que souvent ces outils d'IA, ça va prendre genre un monteur qui est débutant, il va devenir moyen, un moyen va devenir bon et un bon va devenir une agence. C'est un peu mon point de l'autre fois, il y a quelques mois. Et ici, c'est un peu ça, c'est que tout ce qui est outils d'IA qui sont utiles pour des gens du type outils, de genre automatiquement détourer quelqu'un, etc. machin, ça va scaler énormément. Mais tous ces outils finalement ne servent à rien si t'as pas déjà une vision dans ta tête, parce que c'est pas vraiment random, c'est probabiliste. Et donc il est un peu, je pense qu'on se rejoint un peu là-dessus, c'est qu'il n'y a pas vraiment cette angoisse de ça va nous faire disparaître et tout machin, parce qu'on va y avoir de plus en plus de médias un peu partout. And that's I'm leaning into the second point, which is like the death of the relatable media across an entire nation.
Yes.
Meaning that
a monoculture.
A monoculture, yes. And what do I mean? What do you mean by that is that back in the day, you used to have teen media was a thing.
Yeah.
And now
Disney Channel.
Yeah, Disney Channel. And now everybody's on TikTok, whether you're like 13 or like 45.
And what TikTok gives you is what you want, and that's it.
Yeah,
right?
a very narrow view. And so there's going to be...
And occasionally, by the way, things break through, right? Kendrick.
Some will.
Kendrick Drake, right?
Yeah.
Perfect example of a thing that was, everybody heard about that. My parents heard about Kendrick Drake, right? But those types of things were much, much more common, right?
Because you have one lens of media.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now we have like multiple lenses everywhere.
Yes.
Et donc ouais, lui ce qu'il pense, et que je trouve assez malin, c'est de dire qu'en fait, avant il y avait genre un film célèbre, des célébrités de ça, des gens de machin. Les médias de demain vont être beaucoup plus niche, et ce sera fini l'ère où en fait il y a des gens que tout le monde connaît. En tout cas, ce sera très peu. Et la plupart des gens regarderont des trucs qui auront peut-être 10 000, 50 000, 100 000 vues, et ce sera un peu par silo. Et donc comme il y aura beaucoup plus de médias, le fait qu'on puisse beaucoup plus en faire va pas forcément être un problème. C'est grosso modo, j'essaie de résumer un peu le point, quoi. Someone saying like, which I think is a good point. The problem is bosses think AI could replace employees, and employees see it as a tool, but bosses think they can replace people. My personal belief is that it's a curve, right?
Yeah.
So like at the beginning, they're gonna like lay off an entire team, be like, I have AI now. 2 months into it, they're gonna figure out, oh shit, I actually need people to do that.
Luckily for us, time will solve these problems.
Yeah.
You know?
Ce que je disais, c'est que genre, en fait, effectivement, t'as des gens qui vont virer des teams entières parce qu'il y a l'IA et tout. Et ma croyance personnelle, c'est que ils vont se rendre compte après avoir viré tout le monde que genre, oh merde, en fait, l'outil il fait pas tout et il faut des humains derrière. Pour moi, c'est un truc vraiment de like every tech thing, like
Yeah. The only advice I have is seize the means of production. Bring it into your own hands, whatever it is that you're doing. Also, the hardest question, I think, if you want to be creative, the hardest question that you have to answer for yourself is, what do you want to put out into the world?
Yeah.
That's a tough question. That's not an easy question to answer. That's a question that you will wrestle with for your entire creative career, if you're lucky.
The last thing is, it's about LA specifically.
Okay.
So I started traveling to LA like 10 years ago when I met like Ren and like the corridor guys. It was like a very, like I stepped into like, I was like 19, 20 or whatever. And it was a vibrant scene of creators. It was so easy to get into, like not as in getting to like be a YouTuber or whatever, but like you can meet people pretty easy. If you're nice and you just ask around, it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
I want to ask, because everything is so distributed now in 2025, do you think it matters where you live?
And also, by the way, when I look at even on TikTok where there's interesting people and what's being done interesting, it's outside of LA. It's not, very rarely do I find something interesting in LA. And so there's so much more stuff out there than just this one city. And I think it is finally, this is something we were theorizing about in the beginning of YouTube.
Did you think about leaving at all?
Not so much leaving, because one thing LA does have, right?
Are you from LA?
No, I'm from Seattle originally.
Okay.
Yeah. So every city has advantages, right? Advantages, disadvantages, right? LA, the big advantage is actors are. Everybody came out here to be actors. As time has gone on, that's changed and that's shifted. But the available pool of talent is just massive. New York, LA, big cities, obviously, right? But there's advantages in other places too. And it's maybe not obvious advantages, but there are, So I think that, for example, I could see a world where it's like, look, if I love barbecue, I want to get into barbecue content. I'm not LA. I'm in the South. I'm in the American South. I'm going around the world. There's other places. The world has all manner of possibility. It's just a matter of finding it, I think.
Yeah. For your projects, you might as well be like, okay, I want to build a few lots, more sets like this. I'm going to go to Idaho, where
there's absolutely
there's
a world.
cheap land.
Yes, there's
I can
absolutely
build
a
that,
world.
and then you can fly in your actors once a year.
Yes. 100% there's a world where America, and you say a lot about America, it's a huge, insanely huge space. The scale of America boggles the European mind.
I don't know how many France you could. I know Texas is about the size of France.
Here's the thing to me that's always funny is when, especially talking to the UK, is when people talk about their commutes.
Yeah.
In the UK, there's like, I remember telling someone in the UK, and they're like, oh yeah, so-and-so, they live there, we never see them. And I'm like, well, how far away are they? They're like, about 40 minutes. I'm like, that's it? You won't drive 40 minutes to go see your...
In Paris, when you're either side of the river, they're like, I'm never seeing you again.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a world where that could happen, because I don't feel it matters anymore, but it's a very recent development.
Yes, and it was a development that we thought would happen earlier.
Yeah,
because I remember
you were telling me about.
We came out here and we're like, one day it's not going to be LA, it's going to be the hub, it's going to be anywhere you want. And then it was just like, it wasn't that way for a while. Still.
Donc je posais des questions de genre, est-ce que c'est toujours important d'être à LA aujourd'hui alors que t'es sur Internet, tu peux faire un peu ce que tu veux, où tu veux. Et il me disait que aujourd'hui, effectivement, tu peux effectivement être dans n'importe quelle ville des États-Unis, mais ça compte aussi pour la France ou pour whatever. C'est plus important forcément, tu vois, quand t'es sur YouTube, c'est moins important en tout cas d'être à Paris, etc. Mais c'est que depuis très peu de temps, pendant longtemps, c'était très très important. Et on a tous cru que ça arriverait beaucoup plus tôt, ce développement de dire, en fait, j'habite n'importe où, on s'en fout, là où c'est moins cher, j'ai besoin de faire mes studios, acheter un gros hangar, ça coûte moins cher, donc c'est beaucoup plus simple et tout, machin, nana. Et en fait, on peut le faire maintenant, mais c'était pas possible pendant très très longtemps. En tout cas, ils pensent pas que ce soit obligatoire so like the whole like the
old Hollywood-ish story of like, I'm going to go to Hollywood and make it in cinema. Like,
I don't think that's
just do TikToks in Kentucky.
Yeah. But you gotta, but you have to make stuff though. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people go to places and they're looking for other people. And it's like, nah, just start making things. People find you.
Ouais.
Yeah.
That's nice. Le plus important, c'est de faire des trucs et les gens te trouvent si tu fais des trucs.